we started talking about knowing who you are. And we went through the idea of you should do a mind map of yourself. You should go through the human metrics or 16 personalities. You should look at the big picture around you. And we talked about this idea of the big picture around you. Then we got into this. And I was talking about the idea of Bill Gates and Steve Jobs. Some people for a long time thought they're the most successful people in history, but they didn't know the bigger, more successful people are the Rockefellers, the Carnegies, Vanderbilt, JP Morgan. They were 100 times, wealthier than even Bill Gates before his divorce. So why are we talking about that? This idea of the market capital. This is a recent April 2020 showing Apple is worth $2.1 trillion. Saudi Aramco is worth $1.9 trillion. Microsoft, Amazon, Alphabet, all about $1.5, $1.8 trillion. Crazy big. And so today we're talking about these big companies. How much do they pay their CEO? And why should we care? And so we already went through this. Jake Revere, do you remember what this video was about?
Sorry, Professor, I couldn't remember.
Anybody remember what this video was about?
Americans, how they thought wealth was distributed.
We already watched it, so we don't need to watch the full thing again. I'm just wondering, does anybody remember what this was about?
Of course. So he's questioning if the CEOs are really working hard to get 380 times more than average workers.
Oh, okay. So what exactly does that mean?
So he doesn't believe that the CEOs are working that hard. He knows that they are working hard, but he knows that not as hard as 380 times more than the average workers.
Okay, so let's take a look at Keimyung University. Who do you think is the lowest paid worker at Keimyung University? Full-time worker. Any idea?
I guess I don't have any idea.
We can be completely wrong, no problem. Let's just take a guess so that we can picture it. Let's say maybe it's a janitor or a gardener outside. If we say the janitor makes $1,000 a year and a professor makes $100,000 a year, do you think a professor is worth 100 times a janitor? That's what we're talking about. Does that make sense, Yebin?
100 times, I don't agree.
Oh, okay, can you summarize what we just said about the janitor and the professor? We can be completely wrong. We're just using it as examples to understand. What did they?
Of course, professor also works hard and.
Boo, ha, 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 ha.
But the result, the income, the level, there's an inequality. I think they are saying, what?
Let's talk about the professor and the janitor at the university. So, just as what we said, what did we say the janitor at the university, what do they get paid for 1 year of work in our example?
$1,000.
$1,000. Begmanon, right?
Yeah.
And the teacher, the professor?
$100.
$100 can buy you a backpack or a pair of shoes. Yes, $100,000, the price of a Mercedes car, right? So, Sa Jongwoo, do you think those numbers are accurate? Do you think a professor is making $100,000? Do you think a janitor is making $1,000?
No, that is not true. And I think professor get more money than janitor.
That's what we just said. Yes, we said a professor gets $100,000 and a janitor only gets $1,000.
Yeah.
In 1 year. So Can you analyze those numbers? Do you think those are accurate?
I don't know that is accurate or not, but I guess it is true that the professor get more money than janitor.
Okay, anybody wants to help us figure out how much do you think a janitor makes? We don't have to be absolutely correct. I'm just saying any regular respected worker for 365 days of work for 1 year salary, does anybody in Korea get paid
Or maybe
$1,000?
I think they get paid just a minimum wage.
Which would be how much?
It's about 8,000 to 9,000 won an hour.
Okay, and what does that equal per year?
If we get that in year, is about 20 to 30 million dollars, maybe a million one, maybe.
Right, so it's about $30,000 a year. Could be accurate. And a professor, most Korean professors are probably getting paid more than $100,000 per year. The foreign professors are usually paid about 30% of what the local Korean professors are paid, but that's generally accurate. And so if we go back to what we just said, we said, to be simple, a janitor is paid $1,000 and the professor's paid $100,000, which means the professor's 100 times higher pay than the janitor. Do you think a professor's actually deserving 100 times what a janitor is paid or what a gardener is paid?
I think yes.
Okay, do you think I should be paid 100 times what a janitor or gardener should be paid? Okay, if we agree that maybe a professor can be paid more, that's one thing. But I'm being very specific. My words that I'm trying to teach today is quite specific. I'm trying to make sure that you learn a few details here. And so what I said is, do you think I should be paid 100 times what a janitor or a gardener should be paid? If they are paid only $1,000, should I be paid $100,000? Is that fair? No comments? Ow.
If we are in a superb country where everyone is paid at the same for different job, for different works, I think it's unfair to the professor to be paid more than the garden guy. But
we are in Korea, South Korea.
Yeah, if we take, I don't really know how is Korea for the payments, but if you do study like in France, you are paying more than the people who don't have it. So
you're paid more than people that don't have it.
Yeah. For example, if you do like we do now, a degree like on 5 years, if you take the same place, for example, I'm professor, I want to be a professor. I do my study during 5 years and I got my degree. And against me, we got another professor just with 3 years, 3 years of study, and he got his degree too. I'm gonna be paid more than the people who got 3 years of study.
Okay, so I actually have about 17 to 30 years of university and school training. Most people, they go to undergraduate university 4 years, a master's degree 2 years, a PhD for sometimes 5 more years. That is usual for a professor. Some people can stay in a little bit longer, but that's generally usual. Yes, and a gardener or janitor probably does not have 15 or 17 years of university training. Okay, but the question was, in France, it's almost the same as in South Korea. Do you think the professor should be paid 100 times what a gardener or a professor should, sorry, what a gardener or a janitor should be paid? You said they should be paid more, yes, but should they be paid 100?
Not like 100 more. Not. I think you need to pay. I don't know, because we got the minimum salary in France, so the gardener are gonna have like 1,200 euro each month. So it's like 12. Non, ça fait combien par an?
You get the minimum wage. I understand. In Korea, we have the same. So
So-
the gardener and the janitor, they're getting maybe more than the minimum wage here. I'm just, for example, the professors, usually Korean professors are making more than 100 million won, or more than $100,000 per year. That's popular in Korea. But what I'm doing is, just for simplicity, I'm saying they're not making, I'm not telling you the full amount of how much they're paid. I'm just showing if they only get $100,000, the janitor is just making $1,000. So it's 100 times more. Because this video, what the video is saying is what? Ulebek, did you remember? What is this video saying? Can you read the screen?
Yes, the CEO now makes 380 times more than the average worker's pay.
Right. So CEOs are making not 100 times, the CEOs are making 380 times more than not the minimum. What I'm talking about is the minimum, the janitor or the gardener. But this video is saying what? Julie? Is this video talking about the minimum wage worker?
Yes.
No, we're not talking about. Okay, Jacob here, go ahead.
So the video is generally talking about the importance of investment. Yeah. So
Yes.
for example, professors invest their money for education, and then they get more salary than gardeners, like the lower class.
Wow, that's a very interesting observation. Yes, the gardener and the janitor don't invest in their education, and the professor does invest in their education. And so for usually for 5 extra years of extra university, you can get much, much more pay. Yes, that generally is a popular belief. But this video isn't actually saying this. This video, what is that sentence that's showing on the screen right now? Can you read the sentence that is showing on the screen? We're not talking about the minimum wage worker.
Actual
I think
distribution.
I think 2 people were talking at the same time, so I didn't hear you. Can you say that again?
This video talks about actual distribution of wealth.
Right, I'm saying this sentence. The CEO now makes 380 times what?
Average worker.
Of the average worker, right? Not the minimum wage, not the lowest paid worker. The CEO is making 380 times more than average. So what is the average worker in a university? The average worker in a university is probably making about $40,000 or $50,000 in this university. That is average. And so this says the CEO of the university is not making 100 times the average, but the CEO is making 380 times the average worker. So the CEO of this university, if we followed this, it would mean the average person is getting about $50,000 per year, and the CEO is making 380 times that average. Hopefully that is understood by everybody. Any questions about that? So that means if the average worker at this university is making $50,000, this, according to this video, the average CEO would make 380 times that. That would be how much? $19 million is what the CEO gets paid. That's what they're saying here. My question to you later will be, do they deserve that? Let's continue with what, and why I stopped it, because I wanted to find out what do they say about investment. So listen carefully to what they say about anybody investing.
Not his lowest paid employee, not the janitor, but the average earner in his company. The average worker needs to work more than a month to earn what the CEO makes in 1 hour. We certainly don't have to go all the way to socialism to find something that is fair for hardworking Americans. We don't even have to achieve what most of us consider might be ideal. All we need to do is wake up and realize that the reality in this country is not at all what we think it is.
Okay. That's it. I'm going to stop here. They were basically saying that the people that are making, anybody not making what the CEO is making, anybody in the regular 80% of people in the country that are making very low amount, they're saying, he said they don't invest. They're not investing. So why should we be talking about that? Why is investing that important? But before we get into that, any questions about this video? Jung Uso, Pak Yabin, Zarnigar, Ulugbek, Laura, Julie, Jacobir, do you understand what this video was showing? And this was based from a Harvard University study. No questions? Going once. Can you guys still hear me?
No question.
No question.
Understood.
Okay. So what we talked about is this information here, and we showed that because they're making so much, they also give a lot of money back as grants. So it would be good if you guys understand that. Then I talked about in the very first day of class how it would be very good if you guys realize whatever it is you want to do in your future, you should be designing this chart. So plan for your future, start trying to become an expert in that area. And at the end, realize that soon as you get 10,000 hours of practice in, you will become successful. Most people, they don't. Most people, maybe like me, are lazy. Anybody, if you're interested, I'll tell you how much I'm paid. If you're interested, I'll tell you how much I work. If you're interested, I'll share with you any of these details, because I really think if you understand the details and the thought behind it, it could help your future. Again, this whole idea of most people work, especially in France, less than 40 hours at work. And then you sleep more than that. That means you have almost 80 hours every week of free time. You could be using 80 hours every week on hobbies or texting or screwing around, just playing with friends. So that's twice as much as a full-time job. If you are doing that, you can have much more success. So that's what we talked about. Then we got into this idea of, in week 2, we talked about strategies for happiness and success and investing. And we went through and we talked about the idea of there's several different ways to invest, investing in the rich dad, poor dad, the real estate or the assets and the liabilities. This idea here was talking about the stock market, and it was saying that usually be careful because most people investing in the stock market, they generally end up losing their money. So I wanted to make sure this was clear. If any of you are very serious about your future, you should be investing, because the sooner you start investing, the sooner you start learning about investing, the sooner you will be financially secure. I don't care if you're rich or not. I'm talking about just to be happy. In order for you to be happy, you need to have not many worries about money, not financial worries. So to take care of your financial worries, you must start investing soon. But most people, they usually invest in the stock market and they generally lose money. What this was saying, where is it here? Who is it? I think it was Golcano. You wanted to, no, not you. Yeah, maybe it was Golcano. You wanted to start a taxi business, right?
Yes.
Okay, and so what did this chart say? This was from week 2, I showed this. You remember what this showed? You and I believe Malik, you wanted to start a digital marketing company, and Vincent,
Yes.
you wanted to start a restaurant business. What does this chart say? You 3 people must understand what this is saying.
It's show the percentage of all the company in diverse sector, so like business service, fishing, typing, agriculture, etc. Who it's work, who it's not failed. So like we can see like 80 and more % of what we can do, it's working for the 2 or 5 first year, I think. I'm not
Right.
sure
So,
about the.
so for Vincent, you are interested in working in the food and beverage industry. So this says people in that make a company, make a business in the food and beverage industry, 83.5% does what?
That's work who's not closing because they failed. It's work. They live about what they start.
They are likely to survive beyond 5 years. So 83% of restaurant businesses are likely to survive more than 5 years. The key is if they have a written plan, if they start significantly. And so, Julie, I think I heard you, was it you, both Julie and Laura, you wanted to work with finance businesses, is that right? You wanted to actually be an employee in finance companies, is that right?
Not me.
Okay.
It was me. It was me and Laura.
You and Laura? Okay, so what does that mean here?
Does that mean we have a lot of chance to success in our job? I think. Like little much than another industry.
Okay, so what is this that I'm highlighting? What is this saying?
They said the likelihood of survival, we are 89.2% of survival.
Right, 89% of finance companies are likely to survive more than 5 years. But that's not saying what the employees are likely to survive. That's not saying the employees or the staff workers how much they're likely to get paid. This is just saying the owners or the CEOs of this company, the 89% of finance companies are likely to survive more than 5 years. And again, if they write these business plans. That's what I was trying to talk to you guys a little bit about earlier. And again, the idea that you should try to get into the idea of how to manage yourself well, especially how you could, any of you could start your own business well. If you can start your own business well, it's relatively easy to come up with ideas. This 4-Hour Work Week is a very short book telling you how you can start a new business on your own. The Outliers is a book telling you about how anybody has the same likelihood of success as anybody else. Even the famous sports players, they're not genetically different. Bill Gates is not genetically different. Almost everybody is generally lucky because of their environment. This book explains the proof of that. And then this talks about how you can work better with other people and how you can manage other people. And this talks about the idea of real estate. Real estate is one of the best ways to get forward. And that is ways to help you get to your dreams. Other things that we talked about in here is the idea of any investments in the stock market since 1952, and actually since the Great Depression, 1929, any investment in the stock market generally gets about 12% profit. And again, anything from 1929 to 2015, residential real estate is getting about 11%. So the difference is 11% versus 12%. It's almost the same. A big difference here is this, the standard deviation. What this means is almost everybody investing in real estate get about the same, but there's a huge change in people investing in stock markets. Some people get very high and very good profit versus some people lose all of their money in the stock market. There's a very big standard deviation. And this research is showing that. So I wanted to just remind you of what we talked about in week 1, remind you of what we talked about in week 2, this whole idea of what about back to CEO pay. Today we're talking about CEO pay. Why are we talking about CEO pay? How much are CEOs generally paid? Any ideas about that?
Too much.
Was that Vincent? You were saying too much?
Yeah.
Okay. So this, some of you have the Apple phone. You guys remember how much Apple is making? Tim Cook of Apple, his first year on the job, he started about 2011. His first year, $378 million was his compensation. And then other famous companies like Oracle, he's been making $77 million almost every year for decades. And then that it's just showing you the average. S&P 500 shows the median CEO stock awarded. They rose 10% almost every year from 2010 to 2011. This was made quite a while ago. So if we look at this in Zarnigar, you see what this is? What this is showing?
Yeah.
Do you have any idea with these CEO pay? How is it changing in 2000? 10 years later, we're not at 2012 now. We're at 2021, going into 2022 soon. What do you think these numbers have changed to today? Now that 10 years have gone by,
I guess they changed a lot.
can you guess? If Tim Cook was paid $340 million before 10 years ago, how much do you think is the top CEO getting paid now?
Maybe 10 or 15 times more than that.
So you're saying put an extra 0 on this. So the top person is getting $3 billion. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's my guess. I'm not sure.
Okay, what about Ulugбек? You're kind of quiet. Can you support her, or do you have a different idea? 10 years have gone by. What is the top CEO getting paid now?
Isn't it around a billion?
You think they're getting $1 billion?
Maybe.
Okay. Anybody else?
I think now they changed, the list changed because now the most paid it's like Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk with Tesla and SpaceX.
Jeff Bezos is okay. It's a good guess, but if and I should probably just shut up. Maybe it's because I have so much of the training you're talking about, so much of the PhD. I'm very, very picky, very, very specific. Jeff Bezos isn't getting paid at all as a worker because he's retired now, right? But yes, what about Elon Musk? He is still the CEO. At the bottom here, it's talking about Elon Musk last year. Any idea what he was paid last year? Anybody know what Elon Musk was paid? Jung-Woo So, do you have an iPhone? Or do you like Tesla cars? Elon Musk, do you have any guess how much the Apple CEO or Elon Musk was paid? Do you have any idea who was paid more and how much they're paid this year? Sa Jong-woo? Not in class. Zarnigar, what do you think?
Not sure, actually. Yeah, I cannot say anything about it. Sorry.
Crazy guess. Give us a crazy guess. Who do you think is paid more, Elon Musk or Tim Cook and Apple? Tesla or Apple?
Maybe Apple, because the users are getting crazy about the Apple products, and it's getting more and more time by time. Well,
Okay.
it's just a guess. It's just a guess.
Arthur, can you guess how much Elon Musk was paid or how much Tim Cook and Apple were paid last year?
Yeah, actually, Musk wasn't paid. He didn't receive the salary. He received shares of the benefits, and that was like $170 billion almost.
So what this is saying, if we check here, this idea of, this is just the class time, the CEO pay. This is a Scopus magazine, and this was talking about regular people. It's talking about the idea of Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk. They are paid generally more than $547 million, the New York Times study. And it was saying just from this study, Paycom, one CEO was making $200 million. Another CEO was making $199 million. Another CEO, T-Mobile, was making $137 million. So it's showing that several people are paid more than $100 million. If we go up a little bit more, this is talking about Elon Musk. His pay in 2020, that plan from 2018, the initial plan was $2.3 billion. Actually, who's the finance? Laura, you're the finance person, right? Can you read this, what I'm highlighting?
Musk was paid about 11 billion last year by Forbes estimates.
Yes. So getting into finance, it's usually good. You're usually paid more than average. So that is okay.
It take more now. I check and they said 56 billion.
Okay, maybe it's old. This is only from May 6th, so it's a month old. Yes.
Oh,
and now he's his old low pay was only $11 billion. Now it's $56 billion. Damn it. Come on. You guys have any comments about this? Do you think it's right?
No, it's too much.
Eloise and
insane.
Laura, you want to get into the finance.
I have no words. I have no words. It's very, very too much. But I think that because he works a lot of, but
oh, come on.
I don't know.
No,
I don't
that's
know
way
if
too much.
No, it's very too much, very, very too much. But because with this money, he can do a lot of things for his company and his workers, not just for him.
He can buy a country.
No.
He can take everybody in like Nigeria and Kenya and Ethiopia and give them $50,000. I don't know, something crazy like that. It's unbelievable, right? Like nobody deserves 100 times pay what somebody else is paid. Like what we started talking about, just the professor at a university. Do they deserve 100 times what a janitor gets paid? The lowest? But that's not even what we're talking about. What we're talking about is, does that professor get 100 times the average what an office manager gets paid? That type of pay. And even then, I don't think they deserve 100 times. And a CEO, it's not 100 times. The CEO gets 380 times the average person. Not the minimum, not the lowest, but 380 times the average. And it's almost the same everywhere in the world. Shockingly, that is going up. That video that I showed you is several years old, and it keeps going up. Now, I believe it's more than 400 times is what a CEO is making more than average. And so does Elon Musk, does any CEO deserve 400 times an average worker pay?
No.
Laura, you want to get into finance. Why do you want to get into finance? Probably, I guess, because you want to get high pay. Do you deserve, do you realize if you are an employee, you're not going to get that. You will get more than average, but you're only, as a financial worker, you will probably get maybe 1.5, maybe 2 times the average worker pay, if you're super lucky. But a CEO is not getting 1.5. A CEO is getting 400 times more than the average. So what is your feeling about that, Laura?
Maybe it looks like stupid or something like this, but I'm not looking for being like extremely rich like Elon Musk. I think this is nice for him, but what can I do with so much money? I just would like to still have like a, how could I explain it, like a family life. I mean, it's cool if you're working and you like your job, but if all your life is your job, I mean, no. I just want a job that I like, and if I don't have like CEO payment, okay, it's okay. I just want to have time for my kids and my husband. So
okay, so what about the idea of should? Should a CEO get paid that much? How is a CEO getting that pay? Who determines how much they're paid? That's what they're generally talking about. So 2012, this was the norm, and the students said the same thing back then. Nobody deserves $50 million or $500 million, and now it's much, much more than that. Crazy. Even charity. What about charities? Any of you work with charities or like charities? Do you know the American Cancer Society? 10 years ago, the American Cancer Society CEO was getting more than $2.2 million in pay. What about here in Korea? How many of you have gone to the store called Aramdawn Kage? Or how many of you have gone to the store in Korea called Goodwill? Have any of you gone to the store called Goodwill? It is a charity where people just give away their clothes, and then that store will clean it up and sell it. Have any of you visited that store? I think it's an awesome store. Nobody knows of that store? No comment? Anybody know of that store?
No.
Really? So what about just regular thrift shops? In France, do they have thrift shops? Or in Uzbekistan, do you guys have thrift shops where people can go and buy clothes or tools or machines? Almost you could buy anything.
In France, we got this. The name is Emmaüs.
Okay, can you describe what it is and how it works?
What it is. So the company have some place everywhere in France, and you can go and deposit what you want, like clothes, dishes, spoon. What do you don't use for? You can just give it to them. They clean it and they resell just after for less, or for people who need to buy something because they don't have a lot of money. And you can find clothes, a desk, a bed, what do you want, all the stuff for the kitchen.
Yes. So what do you think a manager in those stores generally make? What do you think a CEO of those stores, where some people will take their clothes and give it to the store for free, they just leave it there, and then that store sells it? How much do those CEOs get paid?
I don't know.
They are making the same. They're generally making more than $1 million. And in Goodwill, the store that's very popular in Korea, Goodwill top executives, almost all of the top directors, they're making more than OOK. Sa Jong-woo, can you explain how much is OOK in American dollars or euro?
OOG is about $5 billion, maybe 5 billion. Is that right?
That's Elon Musk money. What I'm highlighting on my screen here, this is OOK. It's generally about $500,000 is OOK. So the top directors, not the top CEO. The top CEO is making more than the millions, but the top executives, just any directors or senior managers in this company and above, they're making more than OOK, more than $500,000 a year. And it's because people are donating this to try to help the homeless. Is that fair? And this is talking about regular professors. Here is a professor many years ago, professors at this university. This professor was getting $3.7 million salary. Here's another professor getting $3.3 million salary. Another presidents of the university, $2.4 million, $2.8 million, $1.3 million. So those are typical pays. But this idea, what is fair? How does the world work? There's a big difference between when you invest in the stock market and when you invest in the stock and you get dividends, and the idea of how much is the revenue that they're making versus the salary. All of these things are different. I would like you guys to be aware of what these differences are. What this is showing is that the gross revenue, how much they're selling compared to, so this is, it's changing how much they actually sell, but the CEO, the salary, it's generally about the same. And the dividends, how much they actually pay the investors, it's all generally very, very low. So there's not really a relationship. You would think the more a company sells, then the higher the CEO salary. But that's not the way it is. Tesla is not selling that much more than Hyundai, or not selling that much more than Toyota, or not selling that much more than Volkswagen. But the CEO of Volkswagen is not getting, what was it, $56 billion in compensation. So be aware of those things. The idea of CEO salary versus net income. You should be aware that net income also is a figure that is very confused. In finance, many people say net income is the total money that a company makes. Well, that's not accurate, because companies can take any of the money that they're making, any of the profit that they're making before they pay tax, put it back into investment to buy supplies for next year, and it will make their profit look lower or delete their profit. So this idea of CEO salaries versus net income, this is also very different. I just wanted you guys to be aware of these things. And there's several different myths that that it would be good for you guys to be aware of. Where the main myths. Here's these myths. These myths. Please go through this and check the idea of the structure of the board. The people that make the CEO pay is the board of directors. Well, those board of directors are elected by the CEO, and they're paid by the CEO. And so the board determines the pay of the CEO, but they only do it in a way that the CEO says. For example, the CEO tells them, find out who are the top paid CEOs, and then do a survey to find out what is the appropriate pay, and then come back with a proposal. And obviously there's unwritten rule that many of them say you have to come back showing the highest possible pay. And then the idea that CEOs are systematically overpaid, another myth. The idea of there's no pay for performance in CEO compensation. That idea of the pay is not always tied to the performance. Regulation improves corporate governance. So check these details. I think it would be very good for you guys to know. And overall, the biggest thing that you should be aware of is the idea here that you should be working towards your long-term goals.